Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, this is Archbishop Perez with a special message recognizing the incredible work of the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. In 2015, its founders were inspired by the World Meeting of Families and the visit of Pope Francis to create a pastoral ministry in Philadelphia for the benefit of families facing relationship crisis. The foundation ministers to struggling families and individuals through a confidential prayer line, pastoral appointment with priests, retreats, and much more. I'm deeply grateful for the work of the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation. In a short time, it has already strengthened and sustained hundreds of families. For more information about this pastoral ministry, please visit the website on your screen and join me in praying for families throughout a local church. May God bless you abundantly.
Hello, and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. This is our podcast that's specifically for Catholics affected by divorce. This is our 10 Virtues series, and I'm joined by the president of the foundation, Mickey Kelly. Mickey, thanks again for joining us.
Hi, and thank you for having me.
Yes, and now this is a great topic because we're going to talk about generosity. Generosity is a virtue of our faith. And I'm reading something from online from a specific website here that says that the charism of generosity enables one to cheerfully offer their energies, abilities, and material resources for the needs of individuals and the greater community. A person with the gift of generosity recognizes God's blessings and will offer resources sacrificially with exceptional willingness and generosity. The charism operates out of a spirit of selflessness with no need for recognition or reward for giving. Evidence of this charism is the seeming carefree confidence one has that God will provide all the basic needs, allowing the giver to focus on the needs of others. That's from St. John's, indy.org. Now, the audience is those affected by divorce, like Mickey. Let's face it, sometimes people who've gone through divorce or separation, when you lose your faith, when you feel like you've lost your faith, the last thing sometimes people want to be is generous. So I don't know whether you have any words of wisdom on that, but what we want to do is encourage you that if you've gone through divorce or separation, not to lose your faith and also not to lose your generous heart. So Mickey, what's your opinion about all of this?
Well, and I do agree with you. I mean, we should not, let, a situation like divorce to, keep us from being generous. Now, when people think generosity, they think it just has to do with giving money. That's part of it. The other part is, giving your time to others. So, in other words, maybe you want to take part in community service, and there's been a call from many elected officials, even the Pope, even the clergy, to ask people to give their time to others, whether it be a day of service or doing something you do frequently. In my case, I do something pertaining to the culture of life. Oftentimes, I would feed the homeless, and every once in a while, I would take part in like other communities, like giving blood or so on and so forth. The point is, we have to give ourselves to others, not just corporal things, but also spiritually. And honestly, they all go hand to hand. When we give, not just like to the point we're depleting our personal finances, but also we have to give, that means meat that gives meaning to others. And I think there's this quote from Jesus when he says in the 10th chapter of Matthew, "You received without pay, give without pay." I think that's really the premise of why of we're tackling generosity is all with this episode here.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it because, this virtue is not just for some, it's really for everybody. So it doesn't matter whether you have money or resources, or if you don't, because if you don't, you can give your time, right? If you don't, you can give a prayer. If you don't, you can give away things that maybe you don't need anymore, right, Mickey? I know we've talked about that on other podcasts. And this is the time too to go through your closets. I know, Mickey, you've brought that up before on other podcasts that we go through our stuff and we decide, can we give some of our things away to help those in need? Don't you think that no matter what your finance levels are, that that's something that people can do?
And you're gonna have me reiterate something I said in previous episodes. But yes, I agree. And let's face it, the vice that goes against generosity is greed. Now, when we think of greed, we think of these ultra rich billionaires who have like this they're sit on this ivory tower and they're just like they're kind of cheap, so to speak. You think about I mean, of course, I think it's safe. I could probably diss this guy here. The guy in charge of Amazon, Bezo. I mean, I don't know if he was replaced yet or not, but I know there's been a lot of people threatening to go on strike because they're looking for better wages, and what have you. And of course, there's been a lot of controversy around that. I remember, like when I was going through college, there was this whole Occupy Wall Street movement to the point where it was kind of spreading like wildfire, like across major cities. Like they were doing these demonstrations, like these sit-ins and what have you. But I think the main thing to really take away from all this is that, you know, generosity, you know, dispels greed. It devalues greed. It makes it poor because generosity, you know, tells us that we think less of ourselves and more of others. Now, granted, we do need money to pay the bills or to put away for retirement or something, but every so often, we have that little extra money. And we people are listening to this by now, we're in the midst of income tax season. Maybe you want to give a little bit of the money you got back from the government to a charitable cause. Keep us in mind, by the way. You know, that's beside the point. So we do need to think of others and less of ourselves. That's the point of generosity.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful way that you express that. And it's the truth. Now, I think there's another way that a person who's been affected by divorce and separation can be generous. And that's when you can be generous toward your own family too, right? Because oftentimes when there's a divorce, kids are affected, whether they're young or old. They need your time and your listening ear. We can be generous through our actions too with our family. So when you're generous with your kids, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and spend a ton of money on your kids at Christmas or birthdays, or that you have to spoil them, right? It's not about spoiling, but it's about being generous with your listening ear, your time, your talent, your treasure. But even in maybe your kids are going off to see an ex-spouse for the weekend or something. Maybe when they come back, there's ways that you can be generous toward them in terms of, you missed out on some time with them during the weekend. Being generous could mean that maybe during the week you could spend special time with them. Don't you think that's an important aspect too, Mickey? I don't know if you want to talk about that, but for young kids that parents are divorced, they do hunger and starve for time with mom and dad, especially when they're splitting up time, right? And so generosity doesn't just mean giving money away or giving things, it's giving our time, caring about our kids enough to be generous with them in the way that we respond to them too. What do you think?
And I think you bring up an excellent point, actually. And yes, so I think it can be a challenge at times if, you're splitting off, between, seeing mom here and your dad there, depending on what the circumstances are at the home. I actually remember seeing oftentimes, um, I usually frequently go to this restaurant near my home. In fact, you've been with me there once. And I remember seeing this dad who was taking his two daughters, and they're kind of like tweens or close to teenage years, and he's doing what he can to remain calm and spending time with the kids, but the kids are being very obnoxious, and they're kind of like goofing off with the gadgets, and I just feel sorry for him, and I wish that like I would have an opportunity to talk to him, and be like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry what you're going through and all that." But I think the best thing I could have just done was like just say a quiet prayer for him and like his daughters and all that. But things like those like really breaks my heart. And I think for me, there are times that like of course I was spending time with my mom. Like of course I was living with my mom when my parents were divorced, and my dad was living not far at all, and I got to see him when I could. I think what was the most challenging is that like there had to be a balance. And then eventually there was. And big deal like on the weekends like my dad and I would do certain things. Maybe every once in a while we would do like some cleaning projects or doing some chores around the house, for my grandma, what have you. And I mean that's also part of the generosity too. Like you're not just giving to your kids, but like you're investing your time into them, despite the divided household. You still care about your child's upbringing, and you want them to grow in virtue despite what the world has thrown at you. So generosity does entail, giving your time, as we said, but it goes a little deeper than, you know, borrow money from your personal treasury to give to organizations. But you want your kids to not be rich like materialistically, but spiritually. That's the main idea of generosity. You're giving your time to help your kids, grow, help them do homework, teach them how to do this chore around the house, teach them you know, how to drive a car, things of that nature. Knowledge is power for these kids, and we have to share all of the knowledge we have here with the children.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because I think the thing that you said that was most important was that the generosity isn't just with money or with stuff, right? Giving toys or gifts or clothes or, all those things are great. And sometimes when parents go through divorce, they try to spoil their kids. That's how they make up for it, right? They like to buy them a lot of stuff and try to make up for some of the things that they've been through. And Mickey and I are both adult children of divorce. And I can say, in my opinion, that those material things only go so far. They might make your kid happy for a little while, but it's not going to give them lasting happiness. So I think that the lasting happiness is going to come through good quality time and teaching them virtue, like you said, Mickey, right? They need to be taught. Kids, we can't just leave them to the world to know and understand what's important about life or faith. We have to teach them. And the way that we teach them is through example. So that when we're generous with our kids, then they learn that generosity is also something that they want to do. They want to live lives of philanthropy. They want to live lives where they care about other people. Now, I also found something online that says that we don't want to give for with judgment on others either, do we? We don't want to judge. It says giving without judgment helps us to grow in generosity, but in humility. It is easy to imagine that we're always wise and prudent with our money and lean on an inflating sense of our own virtue to justify not giving to others who might be more inclined to spend it foolishly. But are we being honest with our compassion here? Are we scrupulous with every penny as we would expect a beggar to be? Now, that's from our Sunday Visitor. There's an article on our Sunday Visitor about generosity. Mickey, I know that you're one that has helped and give to the homeless. What is your attitude when you walk by, say, someone who's homeless on the street, and we can't have an attitude of selfishness, right? We see somebody that's in trouble, we check on them, we ask them how they're doing, and maybe we give them something to eat. So I didn't know if you wanted to share any of your experiences there.
Yeah, like, well, I grew up in a city that has always been has like, very chaotic poverty, let me put it that way. And even before COVID hit, there's been some kind of poverty. And some of the homeless, like that I have seen time after time, most of them seem to be, seem to be kind of crazy. I try to avoid, and there are those that are like, that seem lonely. And oftentimes I would have, um, like maybe like an extra snack or something, be like, here you go. I mean, I think like a steady approach too. Now, I've also seen there's been these what's called Jesus runs that were put together by the seminarians, let alone um, the the seminarians, let alone different young adult groups. And sometimes they'll make peanut butter sandwiches, and they will probably split off into groups, and they'll go around the city, probably within like say like a 8 block radius of the basilica. And when the night is over, we all come together and talk about what they experienced. And the majority would tell us that like they talked to this person, they share their story about them, and then they at the in the end they prayed for that person. I think what's very important is to just pray for them. But what's even more important is like I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable giving them money because you never know what they're going to do with it, you know, or they may try to set you up for a mugging, robbery situation. I would just say, like, if you're going to go at like a mom and pop place, you're gonna get a sandwich. Think about getting an extra one along with like a bag of chips or something, and be like, "Hi, I have this, and I'd like you to have it." So something around those lines. It would mean a lot to them. I think what the homeless need is they need someone to encounter them and to meet them where they are. And most of the time, it's they need food because of course they're going to starve, and they also need probably say like a shelter, assuming that they're not on the bad list or anything. And in time, they should probably get back on their feet. Things around those lines.
Yeah, I think the fact that you have always lived in the city, you're exposed to it a lot more than some other people, like being able to interact with them, right? So, thank you for your wisdom there, because we can learn something about generosity when we, either see the homeless or do something good for them. I know at Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in Overbrook, Philadelphia, where Father Matthew Phelan is the pastor, there's a group of young people that during the holiday season, they take backpacks to the homeless that have like blankets and snacks and pillows and wipes and different things inside the backpacks, so that it's like a nice, like little survival kit for the colder weather. So I think that's a great idea. Like people who like just can do those random acts of kindness. Now you can be randomly kind to anybody, right? I mean, we can see people in our daily lives, at work, at school, at our neighborhoods, in our families. You can do little random acts of kindness, and that's generosity. And that these are things that we can practice that help us to grow in virtue. I would say to you who is watching this podcast that's affected by divorce or separation in some form, don't become selfish. Do your best to try to pray, be virtuous, and stick to the Catholic teachings of being virtuous and also of practicing giving to others and giving to your family, giving to those in need. I think in this podcast, what we really want to do is mostly just to encourage all of you not to give up on your faith, right, Mickey? I mean, sometimes people that go through divorce and separation, there is that temptation to say, you know what, I've been hurt. I don't know how to handle things anymore. I don't want to go to church anymore. And I don't want to care or give or do anything for other people anymore. We're coming kind of close to the close of the podcast pretty soon. Mickey, what would be kind of your final words to those people as far as not giving up on their faith?
Well, and I think you really touched on it quite a bit because it's easy to like throw in the towel, but let's face it, if Jesus did not fulfill the will of God, we would not have Christianity. It is through Christ that we understand what it means to suffer. It is through Christ we understand what it means to take up our own crosses and follow Him. It is through Christ that we help Him bring about the victory over death. It is through Christ that we know the way, the truth, and the life. And that is through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. No one else.
Yeah. Sometimes it needs to be said just simply, like you said, He's the way, the truth, and the life. Don't give up on your faith. Doesn't matter what you've been through. We're sorry that you've been through so much if you have suffered the effects of divorce or separation or your adult child of divorce, but we are here for you. Don't forget about our free resources to go to nonatus.org. You can do free spiritual direction, free pastoral consultations, sending in your prayer requests. We are here for you. We also have retreats too. Mickey, any final words?
Well, you know what's funny, and I was just thinking about this with the theme of generosity. Um, I want to let people who are listening to this to let you know this would not be possible without without the generosity of those who have been given to us, whether it be a one-time gift, a monthly gift. Um, you you giving really helps. And we want to encourage you to please give generously. Not too much, but as Mother Angelica would say, keep us in mind, in between the electric and the credit card bill, so to speak. And keep us in mind too. We could use all the help we can get. And we do have big projects in the works, especially now with 2024 in full swing, and it's a leap year, so we have an extra day to really get on that opportunity to help this foundation grow. Especially now that I'm in my fourth year as president of the board, and we are looking to grow, and we're looking for opportunities to get on the national scale. We're already local, and we're somewhere on the state level, but we do want to go big, or we'll just go home.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, that's
without
wonderful.
your help, it'll be generous. So visit anonymous.org, give, give, give generously, of course.
Oh,
And
wow.
on behalf of the board and the foundation, we greatly thank you for that.
And I thank you, Mickey, for your leadership of 4 years of being our board president. Thank all of you for joining us. And we'll see you next month for our 10 Virtues podcast for those affected by divorce and separation. God bless, and we'll see you then.
Take care. God bless.